At some point after 8 o'clock on the night of November 24, 1971, a man stepped onto the rear stairs of a Boeing 727 carrying $200,000. Then he left the aircraft and vanished into the darkness over the Pacific Northwest. That jump is one of the most famous facts in American crime history, but it proves far less than most retellings suggest. It does not prove where he landed. It does not prove he survived. It does not prove he died. It does not even preserve the name he actually used. The man called himself Dan Cooper. The initials DB came from a press mistake. This is not a suspect list. It is an evidence line. What the FBI record establishes, what investigators reconstructed, and where the case turns into theory. On the afternoon before Thanksgiving, a middle-aged man in a business suit bought a cash, one-way ticket from Portland, Oregon, to Seattle, Washington. The name on the ticket was Dan Cooper. He boarded Northwest Orient Flight 305, a short scheduled trip that should have been unremarkable. Soon after takeoff, he passed a note to a flight attendant and told her he had a bomb. He opened a briefcase far enough for her to see what appeared to be wires and red cylinders. The FBI record supports the threat. It does not establish that the device was a working bomb because it was never recovered. Cooper demanded 4 parachutes and $200,000 in $20 bills. When the aircraft reached Seattle, the airline delivered the money and parachutes. Cooper released 36 passengers, but kept the crew and 1 flight attendant aboard. Flight 305 took off again under his orders, heading generally toward Mexico City with a planned fuel stop in Reno. The aircraft mattered. The Boeing 727 had hydraulically operated stairs beneath the rear fuselage. They were intended for use on the ground, but they gave Cooper a way to leave without passing the cockpit. Sometime after 8 p.m., between Seattle and Reno, those stairs were lowered. Cooper was no longer aboard when the aircraft landed. That design made sense for the airports the 727 was built to serve. It flew short and medium routes, could use smaller fields, and carried its own rear access stairs. For ordinary passengers, they were simply a convenient door. In Cooper's hands, a ground service feature became the break in the evidence chain, the route by which he could leave a flying airliner and enter a part of the story no one aboard could witness. That is the last part of the story supported by a continuous chain of events. A man boarded. He made demands. The demands were met. The aircraft departed. The stairs came down. The man and most of the money were gone. What happened beneath the aircraft is different. No witness watched Cooper reach the ground. No verified message came from him after the jump. The exact exit point could only be reconstructed from the aircraft's route and timing, and the exact landing point remains unknown. The evidence establishes an exit from the airplane. It does not establish a successful parachute landing. The FBI's public account leaned toward the view that Cooper probably did not survive. Its reasoning was practical, not supernatural. The jump happened at night, in poor weather, over heavily wooded country. Cooper was wearing a suit and street shoes. According to the FBI, the parachute he chose could not be steered. Agent Larry Carr later argued that Cooper did not behave like an expert skydiver. The FBI also found no known drop zone and no coordinated ground accomplice waiting below. That reconstruction is powerful because every factor increases the danger. It is still a reconstruction. Dangerous is not the same as impossible. The FBI did not recover a body that it could identify as Cooper. It did not recover a parachute that proved where he landed. And it did not produce a post-jump trail tied to a known person. The same evidence that makes death plausible stops short of proving death. Back on the aircraft, Cooper left a black clip-on tie. Decades later, the tie yielded a D in a sample. That sounds like the kind of evidence that should end a modern investigation. It did not. The sample helped investigators exclude the frequently proposed suspect Dwayne Weber, but it never produced a definitive identification of Cooper. A tie found on a commercial aircraft can be evidence without becoming a name. The investigation, code-named Norjack, expanded rapidly. By the 5th anniversary, the FBI had considered more than 800 suspects. Some were famous. Some confessed. Some resembled the witness sketches. Richard McCoy, who carried out a similar parachute hijacking, became one of the most discussed names. The FBI ruled him out, along with other prominent candidates. No suspect crossed the line from interesting resemblance to proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Then, in 1980, the case produced its strangest physical clue. A child found deteriorated $20 bills near the Columbia River. Their serial numbers matched the ransom. The total was $5,800, only a small fraction of the original payment. For the first time, money that had left the aircraft with Cooper reappeared in the world. But the money did not arrive with an explanation. Investigators could not turn its location into a verified route from the sky to the riverbank. It did not show when the bills reached that spot, who carried them, or whether Cooper was alive when they were deposited. The find proved that some ransom money ended up near the Columbia. It did not prove that Cooper drowned, buried it, lost it, or returned to place it there. This is why the physical evidence feels both substantial and frustrating. The tie is real. The DNA sample is real. The recovered bills are real. Each can test a theory. None can complete the missing chain. Later investigations tried to extract more from the surviving objects. Researchers examined microscopic particles and pollen associated with the tie and the money. Agent Carr explored whether Cooper's knowledge, vocabulary, or the French-language comic hero Dan Cooper might point toward a particular background. Those ideas can generate leads. They cannot identify a person by themselves. A particle can suggest an environment. A comic can suggest a possible influence. Neither is a fingerprint with a name attached. The legend grew faster than the proof. Cooper appeared to have done something almost impossible: threaten an airliner, collect a ransom, parachute into darkness, and escape an investigation that considered hundreds of suspects. His story arrived during a wave of aircraft hijackings, and it inspired imitators. Airlines later fitted devices known as Cooper vanes to prevent aft-stairs from being opened in flight. The mystery became entertainment, folklore, and a recurring promise that one more suspect might finally solve everything. That cultural afterlife can distort the original event. Cooper was not a harmless magician. He threatened passengers and crew with what he said was a bomb. The fact that no one was physically injured does not erase the coercion, and the elegance of the disappearance should not be confused with evidence that every part of the plan worked. In July 2016, after 45 years, the FBI redirected the resources assigned to the active investigation. This is often described as the FBI closing the case. The agency's own statement was more precise. No tip had produced a definitive identification. The physical evidence would be preserved, and the FBI would still consider specific new evidence connected to the parachutes or the ransom money. It was a decision about investigative resources, not an announcement that Cooper had been found or declared dead. So what does the evidence actually prove? It proves that a man using the name Dan Cooper hijacked Flight 305. It proves that he received 4 parachutes and $200,000. It proves that the passengers were released, the aircraft departed again, the rear stairs were used, and Cooper disappeared from the plane with most of the ransom. It proves that he left a tie and that a small part of the money surfaced years later. It does not prove who he was. It does not prove where he landed. And it does not prove whether the darkness below the 727 became his escape route or his grave. That is why the case survives. The mystery is not built on a lack of evidence. It is built on a sharp boundary in the evidence. Up to the moment of the jump, the record is unusually detailed. After that moment, the person disappears, and only fragments remain.